Hello and good evening. Welcome along to The Point, and many thanks for joining us wherever you're catching the show from. I'm Jerome Paul Sonko, and today our discussions and our conversations are really going to be around the pension sector. Not only that, looking at saving for retirement. So those retirement schemes of yours, and how can you plan ably well for your retirements? And then furthermore, trying to understand from the regulator of the pension sector how far we've come as a country and how far the sector has been growing in the last decade. So those are more of the conversations that we're going to be having. But if you want to be part of us, remember, you can join the conversations ongoing on our YouTube channel where we are streaming live, Smart 24 TV. But then not only that, you should as well be part of the other conversations on our Twitter handle, that is at Smart24 TV. Now, please share with us your feedback and your views in relation to the topic of discussion this evening. And then not only that though, you can also download the Smart Digital app. Now you can easily watch us from wherever you are without need of mainstream television. That is, you can stream Smart 24 TV and then also listen to Smart FM and NBS Cordeo, wherever you're catching us from, wherever you are. And then for those who want to get us via mainstream media, that is for DSTV's channel 372, GOTV's channel 320. Our discussions go deeper in analyzing that is the pension sector or the growth of Uganda's pension sector, deeply understanding it. On The Point here, we analyze various economic policies. And joining us this evening to share more of what is happening in the pension sector, we do have, that is the CEO of the Uganda Retirement Benefits Regulatory Authority, Mr. Martin Anthony Nsubuga, who does join us this evening to share more of what is happening and what you should know as a viewer and as a saver. Good evening, sir, and many thanks for joining us.
Good evening, Mr. Sonko. I'm very privileged to be here to share what is happening and also get feedback from the audience. But I'm very excited.
Okay. And of course, we are very excited that you are part of the discussion this evening, and it's the pleasure is ours to have you. And as a matter of fact, I think before we even go deeper into understanding the pension sector, how do you think our culture, our saving culture as a country is at the moment in relation to preparing ourselves for retirement?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Sonko. Saving culture is poor, unfortunately, but we need to look at it from where we are coming from and the traditions that we grew up with. The savings culture of money, putting that aside for retirement. Well, it may look like a new concept, but we may look back from the pre-independence times then. But the basic one starts from the Pensions Act of 1964, I think. And then we go into the the NSSF Act of 1985, and then the pension regulator, that is OBRA, just of 2012. So it just shows that it's not very old with us. But that does not mean that people are not saving, and there are different methods of saving in assets, most likely the immovable assets, or in animals, in lands, in buildings, in land, etc. But I think the issue is that would those be able to translate into a cash flow for a person in retirement? Literature around and what has been tested, the fact is no.
Okay.
So the journey is, how do we help people to start saving for retirement? Numbers show that there is positive response over time, and that's because there's been growing confidence and trust. There's been a deliberate effort by government to ensure that the past of irregularities, loss of funds for investments, poor governance are addressed through putting in place a regulator. And the role of the regulator is mainly to ensure to provide that comfort. Because we cannot encourage people to save for retirement before you put the basic fundamentals right. Can people trust the system? Can people be assured that their money is safe, and therefore if it is invested, it is adding value and it provides a return? So those have now been put right. And the response rate, Ugandans have actually responded. You see some problem.
Okay, now that brings me to wanting to know what has been put in place by UBRA, first of all, to effectively foster transparency and accountability within the pension sector, and what measures have you been putting out there to ensure that this comes to reality?
Yes, accountability and transparency are very fundamental governance issues, and they also enhance the trust and confidence that we aspire for. Members out there need to know about their savings, need to get regular information, need to know what the standing of their account. So what we put in place, first standards, set the standards right, and the requirements to be complied with. Set the requirements in terms of what are you supposed to provide for that member of yours in terms of information,
Yes.
and of course creating a platform for regular engagements. Basic things like annual general meeting are now standard.
Yes.
Basic things of providing member statements are now standard. Things like members getting to know their balances at short notice or using the platforms that are there, the phones, etc. are also there now. But also from our side, we put together we consolidate the performance of the sector and the numbers, and we disseminate it to everybody to see how schemes are fared in terms of performance, of interest, how service providers who provide the technical support and professional expertise in this space, how are they faring, how are they charging. All those are intended to provide more disclosure to the person out there to make very prudent decisions. Besides, we also encourage investments to be made in asset classes that have a platform of pricing of some sort. That's why we see a big growth in government securities, equities market, and also the limits that are available there are also high enough to attract. But we also encourage investments in other assets that are not priced, but who meet a certain criteria of standard. Again, there has to be accountability to the member. Are you doing the right thing? Are you doing in the interest of members? Then we build capacity of trustees. We train them to appreciate their fiduciary duties. That is all intended to provide that accountability, to appreciate whom they are accountable to, and transparency that all the things that are done are very open. And of course, the system is more of a segregated functionality where there are different players supporting the vehicle. So we have fund managers in the market, we have custodians, we have administrators, you have even trustees who have the fiduciary duty. These are the board of trustees or board of directors.
Yes.
But all those have a license of some sort to operate. There is a clear requirement for them to operate or to perform their duties, and there are clear disclosure requirements in terms of what they're supposed to tell the members, and even they're applying for their licenses, what they're supposed. All that is intended to create a very solid foundation of transparency.
Now, as you look at ensuring stability and security of these pension funds in the country, what key strategies of risk management practices that have been employed at UBRA, and you feel like, well, these can safeguard the interest of the pension members and the various beneficiaries?
Yes. Risk management can be looked at from the basic control mechanisms that have been put in place. The first one, I think I mentioned it, or in the wisdom of government, I had to promote a segregated functionality. It is very rare to find a scheme having you are a scheme, you are the administrator, you are the fund manager, you are the custodian. You need to segregate, apart from some schemes. But that is one area to ensuring that risks are a bit managed. Number two, you must define your risk appetite as far as if you're a fund manager and then a scheme as an investor for that matter. Risk appetite is informed by the demographic of the members. How long do you expect them to live in terms of their contract life, but also look at in terms of their aspirations in age profile, how much time do they have, duration of contracts, and then that can inform the type of asset classes you want to put your money in. Now, what controls are also there? You cannot invest 100% of your portfolio in one asset class. So we've given you limits For example, you can invest as maximum of 80% in government securities, you can invest as a maximum of 70% in equities, and then there are other asset classes which have been provided for. Again, you are trying to minimize the risks. Now, when you go to the level of preparing your accounts, you must meet a certain level of disclosure requirements. Again, there are many things that we look into. Basic things, scheme operations. Members' funds are not supposed to be spent anyhow on things that impair their growth. Then you must also get to know the details of where the money is invested. That means documentation. And then there are clear controls in terms of the flow of funds from the custodian, who is also licensed and given enrolled by the scheme, and then the flow of those funds into the investment side. But those are operational issues. Now, from our regulatory side, we've now raised the bar.
Yes.
We used to have more of a compliance approach. Tick box, have you done this? Have you provided this, this, and this? Went to the next level of a semi-risk, analyzing a few things here and there using basic Excel tools.
Okay.
Now we are advancing. Very soon we are onboarding a risk-based supervision system, which is already developed. We've done a few pilots. We are now educating the service providers how it's going to work. So we think by 1st July, we'll be able to roll it out and be able to enhance the level of risk alertness. In principle, we want to identify risk in real time, be able to mitigate against the occurrence, and if they happen or if they materialize, the impact is not that significant. So there's a very clear framework that we've developed that attempts to address that risk.
Okay. Now, furthermore, for the viewers out there, can you clearly at least elaborate when it comes to UBRA's initiatives to promote long-term capital development in Uganda, for example? Not only that, what role do you believe pension funds can play in driving sustainable economic growth?
Yes, we've made attempts to increase the volumes. Today, if I say the sector has grown from as low as 3 trillion Uganda shillings, you can convert in dollars. Today we are talking of almost 20 trillions. It was almost 21, but the recent numbers I've seen for end March from the returns we've seen, numbers have dropped, but I'll explain that at some stage. But the issue is that there's a significant growth, at least for the last 11 years in the sector. And those small, that money has really enhanced to finance the economy in one or another. I think, like I've said earlier, 75% of the portfolio is in government securities. That contributes to the long-term financing. But the effort is more on, we need more people to save. People who are saving around 3 million in that space, yet the working population is around 18 million. So there are 15 million people out there whom we think we need to bring on board. So in terms of providing that long-term saving vehicle, any country that has succeeded world over has relied heavily on institutional investors, basically pensions and insurance, of course, but pensions largely. So if we provide that huge buffer, then we shall be able to contribute to the long-term saving mobilization, which is very, very critical to the long-term development agenda. Of course, if we get more people to save, we can be able to fill in that gap. But there's something still missing. If you want to address the long-term development of the country, you also need to look into how is this money invested by government. At the moment, I think most of the resources that we have from our window or from our market are largely probably used to roll over debt, so to finance debt, or to finance the budget execution of government of Uganda. We think we can be able to contribute heavily to the long-term development agenda if government probably, I think, initiated things like infrastructure bond. I think it's very, very critical. The population or the savers from our side would wish to associate with it. But the other consideration is that if we can identify projects that speak to the to the long-term aspiration of a retiring person. For example, if I retire, I will need services of hospital. I will need good roads, as an example. So the finance availability from our side is there. So the supply side is there. So the demand, it's an issue that we need probably to think of structuring government projects that can be able to attract this kind of resources. And also the institutional or the investors out there who want to go into that space can be assured that there's long-term thing that they can leverage upon.
Okay.
Of course, the principle we shouldn't lose is that even if the idea is to support the social investment agenda, the commercial orientation should not be lost and sustainability. Members need value for their money, need returns, need assurance that the money would grow in the long term. So it's not that it's there for donation, but rather for investment. But they want to associate with those vehicles that would speak to their space as they retire or as they grow in age. So what kind of those investments can be thought through? I think those are the ones.
Okay. And before we even go into the break, you mentioned about how the beneficiaries need to at least have a more advanced system for them to at least feel more comfortable, secure in a way. But when you look at how much do they trust, these systems that have been put in place? Do you think Ugandans are really secure about the entire, saving and more so focusing on their retirement?
Yes, first of all, measuring trust is a scientific approach for sure. I cannot say that there's trust at this degree or there. However, you can look at the indicators that try to build into the trust journey. Where are we coming from and what do we see today? People, I think, are saving more. People are trusting the system. The second thing, what would make you trust the system? Because those who have retired have been paid of recent. The complaints that have been there are reducing of unpayment. They're mainly from the public service side. Thirdly, if you're investing, is there value for your money? Is it creating a return and not wearing down? That means it is growing, okay, but also providing you a return that is above the inflationary rate. Those fundamentals build trust. Of course, the main one that we also need to, or may need not to overlook, is the regulator in this space to whip, to check the excesses, those things that need to be paid be paid attention to. But even when the regulator is there, what controls have they put in place to ensure that that trust is built, that even when a person is going to retire in the next 20 years, because saving for retirement is long term, it's not short term like you're putting money in a commercial bank, which could be for a few days or hours. Here you're putting your money for long term, 5 years, 10 years, even 20 years. So systems must be forward looking, provide that assurance and comfort and sustainability. So that's the energy and that's the effort that we really focus on to ensure that that confidence and trust is built, and subsequently it can organically be seen, not even be seen. I think you can feel it by the response rate. Are people coming into the space once we speak to them? Yes, we see numbers coming up. Of course, the things we've not done to tap into a particular category of class, understanding their consumer behavior and their interests and their preferences, etc., etc. So we just need to understand and appreciate what are those unique features of those 15 million people that we've not yet reached out, what really interests them, what really would appreciate them to come into this space, because the trust has now fairly been built. They can now do some testing in terms of putting small monies as a start, but also keep it there and also help it to grow. For us, we believe that, say, for retirement, you don't need a lot of money. You sacrifice or put aside small money That's why the contributions to NSSF are 5%. But the principle is that keep it there. If we can appreciate the principle of preserving the funds for long term, then let it grow. If you keep it there for long, you benefit from the best compound interest principles, things that we used to learn in primary, but good that they are with us and they're in application that we can be able to execute, even learn from them. So we've, in our effort to bring more people on board, we've given these basic examples. You can start by as little as 5,000 a month or 10,000, and people are beginning to appreciate. One who started with 5,000, after 2-3 months, they've been enhanced to 10,000. So if you can get more people in that space, I think we can be able to address that long-term old age poverty agenda, but at the same time be able to contribute to the long-term saving requirement that is very critical to the economic development of the country.
Okay, and well, of course, if you are still watching here on The Point, we are still analyzing the pension growth and the pension sector in Uganda. Big conversations are returning immediately after the break. This time around, we shall be as well trying to look at the market competitiveness amongst the others, and of course, the technological advancements and how best you can save for your retirement. You know, these are things that we need to prepare for, and not only me, but every other Ugandan out there, whether voluntarily or not, but you need to at least have a saving plan, more so for your retirement. The sector is growing when you come to think of it, the Ugandan pension sector growing steadily well, but then you can as well be part of it. After the break, we continue with our conversation. Stick around with us. Good evening.